Then we have Tony Goldwyn, an accomplished actor, director, and producer. Most of us know him for playing the President of the United States on the hit show Scandal, and more recently, the father of the heroine in Divergent. Tony's talent also extends into directing, with credits for Scandal, Dexter, and Law and Order, just to name a few.
Right is Mr. President. Tony Goldwyn is a distinguished artist in so many different ways. He's an actor, as you know. He is a director, an award-winning director on very purposeful projects. He's also the co-creator and EP of that new series that the Congresswoman described. It's called The Divide on AMC. And there's a very big social media component to it that I want him to talk about as well, but that's airing on July 16th. So let me just dive in with a couple of data points, and I'm gonna have you guys start talking about it. And one is that according to the Curve Center, Twitter has reached a certain penetration in the last 2 years. The market share or the market penetration has gone from roughly 30% to almost half, 44% in just the last 2 years. And how that drives television audiences is a fascinating exercise in technology. So if you dig deeper into the data, there's a study that was funded by Fox and Twitter, so you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it found that 76% of people who'd seen a TV-related tweet actually searched for that show. And that 78% of them had taken some sort of Twitter action, like clicking on a hashtag, or some 77% actually watched the show as a result. So it is definitely having an impact. And obviously, you know that Scandal got some record number of, what was it, 770,000 tweets per?
Something like that, yeah, it's incredible.
A bajillion. And it really is a pace setter in the world of audience interaction on Twitter. So, Tony, I want to start with you. How has that kind of interaction affected the audience experience, do you think, and how does it affect the creative process?
Well, I think in both cases, it's completely changed everything. I was terrified of Twitter and actually a little snobbish about it when I started Scandal, because I thought 142 characters, that's the problem with our society, the soundbite society that we live in. And I was sort of like, I'm not doing that. And, but Kerry Washington and Shonda Rhimes were like already way into it and said, this is what we need to do. And frankly, I don't think the network quite knew what they had with our show yet. And we came out of the box and we were doing fine in the ratings, but nothing huge. But from day one, we started doing this live tweeting where the whole cast and the creators and the writers and then our crew and everybody kind of got engaged. And immediately we had this instant relationship with the audience, which began with the people that dug the show from the beginning felt that they had ownership over it. So then they started talking about it and felt like it was their show.
And has it affected the creative process, do you think?
You know, Shonda would have to, you know, answer that. I don't know that she makes any creative decisions ever because of what the audience wants or doesn't want. You know, certainly the relationship has an effect on what we all do. And of course, it's the reason our show became a success, because it has this exponential power.
Tony, tell us a little bit about The Divide and how social is really a part of the plan for your rollout.
Yeah, it is. The Divide is a show that is, you know, deals in social issues, but is fictionalized. It came out of a movie that I made called Conviction, which was a true story of a man who was wrongfully convicted and his sister.
For which you are so humble, you will never point out that he won a prize from the Innocence Project for this film. So.
Right, thanks. So anyway, thank you. So that inspired, you know, there's sort of like what you were just saying, you know, there's the true stories you cannot believe. They're so dramatically interesting and use, you know, dramatic storytelling as a way of highlighting really powerful social issues. So my partner, Richard LaGravenese, who's a great writer, movie writer, we teamed up and created this show which takes a fictional approach to the idea, the world of justice, and it centers around essentially an execution that may have been wrongful, and the impact of a crime, a violent crime, on the lives of all the people involved. The DA of Philadelphia, who made his career on that crime, a young Innocence Project worker who uncovers a piece of evidence to unravel the whole thing, the victim's family, all the different people around a crime. And we get very much into their lives, and it's really a drama about people. that has, I believe, social relevance. And sort of half the cast is African American and half the cast is white, and it gets into racial politics as well. And
Is that the divide, or are there many divides?
there are many divides, and the divide ultimately is within each one of us.
That's deep,
So,
Tony.
for us, we think that that social media is a tremendous, way to talk about this. And I have a following now thanks to Scandal, and already so many of my followers on Twitter are saying, can we live tweet The Divide? We can't wait to see it because the trailer broke, and people are talking about it instantly. And so, using that profile to branch into, talking about something else and connecting with incredible organizations like the Innocence Project, that we now are a way of talking about their issues, and all different kinds of organizations that create so much synergy. And so we have a whole media plan now that we're putting together for July when it comes out, which is really, social media is at the center of it, and it's not expensive. That's the other thing. I mean, from like your point of view, the marketing is so expensive.
Yeah.
And I know you want to get into what's changed in movies and why movies like, what's now the best television used to be movies, and that's so hard to get made now, but because they're so expensive to market, for the model of movie theaters. So,
Well,
anyway,
what I was going to say,
to Amy's point, when I started out as an actor 25 years ago, you could not cross over from one medium to the other. If I started out working in the theater, and then the first jobs I got in front of a camera that I could get was, being like guest starring in television shows. And I was immediately branded as a TV actor. I could not even get auditions for movies. I remember, even the agencies that represented us were compartmentalized. Well, that's a TV agent. You're with a TV agency. So, and I remember my first big break was Ghost that Amy's now recreating for television. But I had to fight like hell even to get an audition. I remember just badgering my agent to fight to get in for that movie, and I happened to get lucky. But everything was completely compartmentalized, and that has all changed completely. And
You were such a good bad guy.
oh well, thanks. But all industries, as human beings, we want to kind of pigeonhole each other and sometimes ourselves, and we can't afford to do that anymore because the world, everything is moving so fast that if you're stuck in an old mode of doing things, you're going to be left behind. And it's kind of like what Vice President Biden said about, in order, creativity demands, changing the orthodoxy. I forget exactly how he put it, but, and the idea of changing old Hollywood, first of all, the movie business has been declared dead many times.
Right, exactly.
1929 with the jazz singer, with sound, that's going to kill the movie business. The advent of television in the 1950s, movies are dead. The advent of VHS and video in 1980 was going to kill the movie business. It's not going to die. People still want to go and have that collective experience. That said, right now we are in a cycle where a certain kind of dramatic storytelling ain't getting made really, except for those movies that fight like hell, like the Dallas Buyers Club, which took 10 years and wins the Oscar. That movie by rights should never have been made. There's an audience for that movie, of course, obviously, but movies cost so much to market that studios are afraid to take the risk on the movies that are sort of $10 to $20 million, which for me as a filmmaker are the movies I tend to make. So I'm migrating to television because the last movie I made, when I mentioned Conviction, took us 8 years to make, and I was happy to make it, but television now is where those stories can be made much more easily and get an audience much more rapidly and not be out of the theaters in 3 weeks because they didn't, hit certain box office. Can I ask a question? Does the binge watching impact the economic model in a big way? I mean, do you worry about that? I mean, it is the new way, and the audience kind of decides what they want to binge watch, because obviously people binge watch things with cliffhangers, like Juju was saying. Or is there, put it crassly, money to be made in either however an audience decides to watch a particular project?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of binge watching right now is happening on Netflix, and we don't know their ratings. So there's a different economic model of working with Netflix than there might be with a different company. But for us, there's, ability to strike a lucrative model of working with any one of those distributors.
And how Twitter started ratings fairly recently, and that's when we knew that Scandal got whatever it was, 770,000 Twitter impressions in their show. Is that monetizable? Or is that something that we are moving towards? When you get that much action?
I think Twitter is trying to do everything it can to monetize around that type of a fan
Twitter,
base
sure.
and that audience. Now how we monetize around that is a different question.
Well, I mean, it's not really my industry, but doesn't it impact ratings and right, because it is figured into Nielsen's ratings, and the new rating systems are incorporating this
But
as
they haven't
ways.
figured that out, I don't think.
I
have
think
they?
it's very much a work in progress.
You know,
Yeah.
And people are still very much, people can also smell a rat. Like, so in the middle of these types of, like in the middle of these interactions, like, oh, and you should check out our brand new store where you could buy T-shirts.
Delete.
It's like, delete. Yeah, because people want to know, and
That
authentic.
happened-
They
those
don't want to
sort
know.
of
They
a-
want to know they're not being sold to. And
Yeah, we had a sort of a firestorm on Scandal a few weeks ago because
A scandal on Scandal?
Scandal on Scandal in the Twitterverse. I guess Mercedes-Benz is one of our sponsors, and Mercedes-Benz attached their tag to our live tweeting as if we were doing it. And within seconds, thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets came in and goes, oh, you guys are just selling Mercedes. Oh, you guys, this is all bullshit. You guys are just, and as the cast, we were like, what?
Yeah.
And we called Shonda, and she immediately contacted ABC, and there was a whole dust up for 24
That's
hours, and then they said, we apologize, we're gonna take it off, and that's not at all what we meant to do. And
That's
we had to tell the fans, were not,
Or
they
we
thought
meant
the-
to do it, but now we're not going to do it again.
That was our A/B test.
But I was fascinated with the audience reaction to that. That people want to know. I mean, like, it's why I always do my own tweeting.
Right.
Because people often ask, do you actually do your own tweets? And I know, Carrie has a thing with hers. If it's ever somebody else on her team, it says KW Crew. Like, she makes it very clear that she's not tweeting that. And the social media audience wants to know that connection with the creators is for real.
Comes back to meaningful.
Yeah, I completely support that because it says 0. Are we dead yet?
Yes, we're dead.
Maybe we're no longer alive. Maybe this is all a dream. So I'll go into overtime just quickly to echo that and say that the thing about not being afraid to fail, in fact, the opposite, welcoming failure, because any creative idea that you have may not be the ultimate, may not look the way it looks as it's in your head. Things take sometimes years to evolve, sometimes things evolve very quickly, but they always are evolving and changing. And, someone says, well, I don't know if I can do this, or what if it fails, or, you get scared. And that's the enemy, so, yeah.
Well, this was great. I mean, honestly, you guys are a powerhouse panel, and you really delivered. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your being here, and thank you all for being here today, too. Enjoy.